Hi, welcome to another episode of the Investor's Guide to Hard Money Lending, brought to you by CoreLend Financial. Today we have two guests from Bradsher, Alpert, Stuart. Bradsher, Alpert, Stuart.
There you go.
And we have Melissa and Connie coming in. Busy season right now with all the holiday parties, so I appreciate you coming by.
Yes. Thank you for inviting us.
Yeah, so tell me, you deal with CoreLend quite a bit, with hard money lenders quite a bit.
We do.
As well. Tell me, what do you see as kind of the difference in dealing with a hard money lender versus your traditional lenders, like your conventional loans or your FHA?
It's a ton easier.
Oh, it is? Okay.
Yeah, you guys make things really easy. Traditional lenders require a lot more. There's a lot more back and forth. On my end of things, everything's just a lot smoother with you guys. Connie, I think you have a lot easier time too with the closing of things.
Oh, yeah, definitely. We do different things. She's in the beginning of the file. So, she deals with the title work and giving the lenders everything they need. And I deal with, once it's clear, she's done with the file, it's good to close. Then I prepare the documents, coordinate, and, make sure I balance with the lender. And the difference between a private lender and regular lender is just great. It's enormous because not only that you get stuff way in advance, so you're not waiting to the last possible minute to close or prepare documents, but also the approval process, the loan documents, packages are so much smaller. It's just almost like working a cash deal, but somebody's getting a loan. Basically, that's the way I look at it.
And with other traditional lenders, there's so many people that have their hands on the file that it's like, hey, I need you to send me this. I need you to send me this. Well, I've already sent it to so-and-so and so-and-so. Here's the 12 times I've sent it to you guys.
Right.
And it's so many people have their hands in the pot that things get missed and they're constantly asking for more. So it's just extra work that nobody ever needs to do.
Right. Now, you brought up, it's almost like cash, but not. It's a lender. So we have run into a couple, issues, maybe delays in the last second where the title company didn't know it was actually going through a lender with us. What is your recommendation for these borrowers that are putting cash down versus hard money? What does that?
We tell them on the contracts to write hard money.
Okay.
Because it's not cash. You are obtaining a loan, even though it's easier. And when they write hard money, sometimes they might need to go and explain this is not a traditional loan. It will be more like cash, but they do need to write that it's hard money on the contract.
Yes. And that is definitely key.
If it's not on there, we don't know.
Well, it also helps because if you write on the, which direction you're going to close, either cash or conventional loan, FHA, hard money loan, private lending, it helps in case there are any delays. You can actually be entitled to somewhat get an extension. If you have a problem with providing, you guys paperwork, something that is delaying the closing. So
homeowners insurance.
Exactly. Homeowners insurance delays that a lot. So you can actually ask for an extension, but it's hard for me to let the other attorney know if we're not handling both sides. The lender is extending this. So the first question and they screenshot is, but this is a cash deal.
Right.
And then everybody looks foolish.
Yes.
Yes. It just saves a lot of problems at the, if you let them know that at the beginning versus at the last second.
Right.
Exactly.
And usually sellers that are thinking, oh, this is a loan. And you have to go into an extra explanation at the last second. But typically they're usually okay. Oh, you're going to need 2 more days. Yes. We're not going to blow the whole deal up.
Whereas if you do that on the front end, it saves everybody hassle.
It saves everybody a hassle. No, I would agree with that. And yeah, we've run into that. So yes, people please put hard money lending or private lender down if you're obtaining a loan.
Yes.
And that also too, what are your recommendations on these people where they'll put cash and they'll put no contingency, like no financing contingency? What are your recommendations in that aspect? Would you say put that financial contingency in there?
Well, I think that's self-explanatory once you say you have a lender involved. But if you put cash and then you put a contingency, you have a lender, you kind of have a contradiction on your contract.
Right.
So you either put one or the other. So if you put that you have a lender and you do not get approved for whatever reason, then, you get the letter from the lender stating that not approved. And therefore, it wasn't that he didn't perform. He didn't have the money, but he established he was trying to get a loan.
Right.
So
keeping their earnest money safe.
Right. Exactly. And a lot of times that's where it ends up where they end up having a lot of trouble is because they try to get their owner's money back and they're like, no, there were no contingencies. There was nothing involved. You said it was cash. Why am I going to give you, you failed according to the contract. So if you put it on there, it's a CYA for yourself.
Right. And it's a simple step and you can still explain to them. It can still close just as fast.
Exactly.
And I think a lot of what our borrowers too, there were title companies too that don't frequently deal with hard money lenders. They're thinking, I need all the documents, not thinking that once we get an approval sheet, we can close within 48 hours.
Right.
It's not this long process. You don't have the clear to close of 3 days and all the closing. It's a little different being a private lender.
Yeah, the closing instructions are so much easier. It's not difficult to get a private loan settlement statement and loan docs ready in no time. So there should be no delays once it's approved. So
right. Yeah, you're exactly right. I know, Melissa, we were talking before we started filming, we're talking about what's some of the challenges you've been dealing with lately. It's kind of heirship.
Yes. Heirship files are almost always a challenge. It's very rare that it's just very simple. Mom and dad die. There's 2 kids. They're the heirs. Those are wonderful. Easy, simple files. But as we were discussing, a lot of times that sometimes property will be in families for years and years and years. And so you've got great-grandparents that owned it. The grandparents have passed. The parents have passed. Now we're dealing with like great-great-grandchildren, and they have
Spread
no
across
idea.
The country.
Yeah, they have no idea when the original owner of the property passed away. I don't know. Nobody has their death certificate. Nobody has anything because it's been
in the South, that's when you find the family Bible.
Yeah, there you go.
Didn't we have one recently that they just found out they had an extra sibling that nobody knew about?
Oh,
yes, that happens too. Well, because a lot of times, and what people don't realize, and they will try to leave people out, especially if there is a sibling from a previous marriage, and then mom and dad got married and had 3 more kids. Well, these 3 kids, they think they own the property. Well, mom had a kid from a previous marriage. And so then what people think they can get away with it, but what they don't realize is there's obituaries that we can find. And we go and find out, hey, where's this? Who's this person? Why are they listed? Or another thing, people will mess up obituaries all the time. Like they'll be like, oh, the little girl next door, she was like a child to me. So they'll put daughter, little girl next door, whatever her name is. And then I'm going, who's this person? Well, they're not really my sibling. It says in the obituary they are your sibling. Now we have to go and explain to figure out who this person was, contact this person, make sure they weren't actually, an heir to the property as the obituary states. And a lot where people mess up too is with when families combine, everybody now is divorced and remarried. And so when families start to combine, mom and dad split, mom remarries, house was in mom's name. Well, now the new husband wants to take it, but he can't. It goes to her children and to him, depending on circumstances. But sometimes they'll try to, their family members are just awful. They will try to rip other family members out and try to get the proceeds. And it's amazing how often you come across that. But it's also amazing how often if you don't protect your title and your rights to things, that some people that should get, access to your property after you die, they should be heir to it, aren't because of the way marriages work. If mom and dad are on title and mom has kids, she passes away first, but they're married. When she dies, it goes to him. Those aren't his kids. They don't get anything.
And so, it's important that the families, they do family planning.
Family planning is important.
Just
Wills
because
are
it's
important.
under your name, it doesn't necessarily mean, it depends on the circumstances that it's going to your children if you go first.
If you go first and you marry another person that's not their father. So
yeah, and that's what I think. And we do see this come through hard money lending to a lot of these applications because they're properties that typically have never hit the MLS, so the multiple listing service, which is what you traditionally go and find properties. They're off market. There's no telling where they've been, but that's a great deal.
Right.
But sometimes sometimes that great deal takes a lot of extra work.
Well, pretty much the way I look at it, if somebody hands me a contract for $500,000, I know I'm not going to have to worry about that file. If someone hands me one for 20, I'm just going, yeah, that's going to cause me problems. And those are the ones, can you cut your fees if it's only $20,000? No, because I'm going to spend 10 times more time working on this file than I would on a $500,000 property. So,
and that seems to be the case. I know I talked about before, one of my deals that took the longest was a $90,000 land purchase, and it took 9.5 months to close it because they had to track down 12 heirs. We ended up closing it, but it just took that long. And it was probably some of the hardest I've worked to get that to the finish line.
Right.
For really just the satisfaction of getting it to the finish line.
And at least it was the $90,000 ones. I've had ones that I've had to work that hard on that are $5,000. And once you get down and you realize that there's 20 heirs and they're only getting $5,000, nobody's like, why am I going to do all this work? What am I getting out of this split between 20 heirs?
Right.
And so then those end up just falling out. Nobody ends up wanting to do it because they're like, why am I wasting my time for no money?
Yeah, we had one that I think it lasted like 6 months. Melissa trying to track everybody down and everybody agreeing. And some wanted power of attorney. Some didn't trust this. I didn't trust that person, whatever. So I had to set up an appointment for 18 people to come to the office and prepare documents for 18 separate people. And first, it took me like all day. It's stressful because you have so many different, this person gets this percentage, this person gets that percentage. So you know, after all the closing costs and everything, you have to make sure everybody's getting that exact percentage of proceeds they're going to get. Took me like 4 hours to get the package done. And then they moved the closing from, say, Thursday to Monday. So I had to redo everything. Prorations change, everything changes. So now, you know, extra dollars, less, more, whatever the circumstance on the proration was. So I did the whole package. And come Monday, one of the heirs, when they saw the bottom line, because there were 18 people on a cheap property, when he saw the bottom line, he said, I am not going to sign for that. And he didn't show up. We could not close that property.
All that work
For nothing.
not paid
6
a
months.
single dime.
Pretty much
Hours
3
and
full
hours and
days
hours
of work,
of my time.
nothing. It was about this big
It's
to
one of
just
those
get
ones
into
you
the
want to
closing
cry.
table.
Because, you know, what people also don't realize too is like if you've got several heirs and so it's like, you know, grandparents and then there's, you know, mom and dad from underneath them. And so then you're going to great, you know, children and great grandchildren. Well, the children are going to get more, great grandchildren are going to get less. And if you keep going down, it gets split. You
Right.
know, as you know, it's like there's 3 kids. Well, they each get 1/3. This person died. So then it's going to go to
the
theirs.
kids.
So their 1/3 is going to be split however many ways between however many kids they have. And so people don't quite realize they think everything's
waters
split
down,
evenly.
yeah.
You're just
and
going
it's
down
not.
the family tree.
But the
Right.
other problem we have too a lot is that there's always that relative, that family member that it thinks is in charge. They sign the contract, they sell the property, they agree with the sales price, they agree with everything. Turns out there's 10 other people involved. If you don't get all 10 people to sign the contract and agree with everything, you do not have a contract.
Right. Yeah, it's important to do due
Due diligence, yes,
Exactly.
and a lot of wholesalers will not. They find a property, they find one heir, and they're like, it's, you know. First off, they never tell me it's an heir file.
They don't want to be the one that you
I have to go figure that out to begin with, and then I'm like, I start doing, you know, just basic research. They're not the only heir here. You don't have a contract, and then they're mad. I'm like, no, you. I don't want to work on this until you have every signature because until everybody agrees, I don't know if they're going to
It has
move
happened
forward.
before where she worked on it a lot and 2 people didn't want to sign. They didn't want to be a part of it for whatever reason. They don't talk to their siblings.
I got one now. I just got that one person was the one who agreed, found out there was a whole bunch more, got them all to sign the contract. Now the one that originally agreed doesn't want to do anything. She's like, oh, this has been too much of a pain. Now everybody's on board to sell. And that original person
not.
won't talk to me anymore.
It's getting everybody on the same page on so many of these
It's very
deals.
difficult, yeah.
Well, and also too, say on title issues, I've seen things. I know we see some of our borrowers come in and it's a great deal. They've got 2 parcels on the same lot. You tell me how that can cause issues too, where you've got 2 separate parcels on the same lot.
Well, then they're 2 separate lots, basically.
Yeah, but we have our borrowers come in. See, once they start the loan with us, the clock starts ticking. And so they've got to get those subdivided if they're going to try to refinance that out.
Oh, you're talking about
you
if they're
mean
needing...
one
Yeah.
lot and, 2 lots in 1 parcel.
Yeah.
Okay.
Right,
okay.
right.
Okay.
So they're subdividing the lot. So yeah, I mean, that's going to be a whole nother issue that they've got to get the city involved in.
Right.
So it's above and beyond just title
Just
work.
the title company. Yeah,
Right.
you've got to get
Right,
the
because
city.
once they go and start subdividing lots, that's kind of outside of our realm. We can help them and point them in the right direction, but they've got to get with the city to get everything subdivided, get new parcel numbers and addresses and all of that worked out prior to everything. Yeah.
Yes, they do. And sometimes I saw in one deal where it took us months to close this one because the city didn't want to subdivide it until the new buyer bought it, but the lender wouldn't lend on it until the city subdivided it.
Yep.
So
wow.
And run into issues like that before too, that you have conflict of interest of this works best for the lender, this works best for the city, the buyer, whatever the case may be, and somebody's got to meet in the middle or the whole deal ends up dead.
yeah. And now how important with these things, we're talking about these different issues, how important is title insurance?
Extremely important. Very few people will skip it, and I always tell them it's an absolute must. The amount of times just on a weekly basis that I have to back up to a title policy, some title companies are better than other title companies. And some don't always clear things as they should. Some don't have complete searches. Sometimes there's just human error. Nobody's perfect. Things can be missed. And if they're missed, like let's say you had a title search back and there was a big judgment on the previous owner, and it's very obviously them, but whoever did the title search somehow missed that. Stuff happens. We're human. Got to have that to back up to because we got an issue here. Or even a lot of times with mortgages, old mortgages that don't get released. That's a huge thing. And then they go out of business and nobody can track them down. So a lot of times, depending on the circumstances, like if you can prove that, hey, we did pay them off, here's our settlement statement, here's the check, here's, where it cleared, but we didn't get released because they went out of business 2 days later. With that type of information, we can back up to a policy. Dead people, again, they're always a huge issue.
Left out heirs.
Yeah. So anytime there's an heir file, pretty much I'm always asking for a policy because I don't know what you may or may not have missed. We go back and try to make sure everybody did everything as they could, but we want to make sure we have that policy in place from when they purchased it. So there's just things that happen on a daily basis that can cause you issues. And the amount of times we've had to go back to policies because something was missed in them.
Yeah, but when there is a loan involved, having owner's insurance is not a brainer because a lender will always require that they require lender's insurance.
Yeah.
So, and you get such a huge discount if you do the simultaneous issue that you skipping not having your own coverage, it just makes absolute no sense because you're not saving anything at the end. When I do a settlement statement and I have both the simultaneous issue, it just comes to separate charges, right? But if the owner or the buyer tells me, I don't want the title insurance, remove it. Once I remove that, the lender's insurance goes up. Because now you don't get that discount. So technically, they're not really saving anything if they're saving something. It's not whatever they're saving is not worth it.
Right.
Not worth the risk.
Yes, it's
and
not
I think
worth
that's
the
what
risk.
some people don't realize. It's not worth the risk versus you.
And I try to show them, here's the calculator, here's the HUD with, and here's the HUD without it. Like, it's really worth it for you to save $50, $80, depending on, sales price and whatever we're talking about, and not have this coverage that is going to protect you the whole time you are holding title on this property. I don't see what investment you're making then. So they understand. And once you point it out that way, they decide, yeah, it's not worth it.
Yeah, no, that's it. You want to protect your investment. I mean,
Exactly.
That's the bottom line.
Because if there's anything that's majorly ends up being wrong with title where you do need to back up to your policy, you're covered. Like the title company has to pay for whatever attorneys need to be involved. They have to pay for whatever it takes to go back and fix that so that you can turn around and sell it again. That's not cost you want to absorb if it's, something like there's been times where meth labs have been missed. Meth labs are a big deal.
It's a tear down.
Yeah.
Meth labs are a big deal. And I've had to have somebody back up to their policy to use it and get the title company to square away the meth lab, which that's can be $10,000, depending, because you can't always tear everything down. Like if it's a shed, you can, but you still have to do it in such a way. The city has so many regulations on how you handle meth labs that it's an exorbitant amount of money. Mm-hmm. And so that's definitely not something you don't ever want to skip out. You don't know what could possibly come back to bite you later.
Well, and also too in this city, with it being such an old city too, with how some are just, like you said, passed down, and right. You don't know really what that, there's a lot of diamonds in the rough here.
Oh, there are.
And you have a lot of properties that, they were quit claim from one person to the next, to the next, to the next, to the next. For whatever reason, they just kept doing this quick transferring and nobody was checking. Well, it turns out that this last person, when they are ready to sell and you have a buyer that have a loan or just a regular buyer that is doing the due diligence and checking the title work, well, it turns out that some of those quick claim deeds are not even real. There is so much identity theft right now, so many notaries just notarizing anything for few bucks, that you have to protect yourself because you don't know who it actually, if that person that signed, that said the sign is the right person that is signing. I mean, we check all the time. We verify sellers, we verify everybody. But if somebody brings us ID, somebody brings us everything, we're okay. Yeah, this is the person.
Well, and to piggyback off of that, like one time we had father passed away, which we did not know. Father and son had the exact same name.
But there were no juniors and seniors.
No juniors, no seniors, exact same name. Comes in, he's got his ID. He is who he says he is. We have no idea that the father is on title and that he's dead. And he has brothers and sisters. And tried to just sell out from underneath them.
Yep. We had one that actually closed.
Thank God for
and
title insurance.
It was a fake title company.
Oh, yes.
Out of town, fake title company. They look legit. They had all the paperwork. They had the settlement. They prepared settlement statements. They had everything as if they were a title company, and they were not a legit title company.
So what I'm seeing is you need a reputable local
Yes.
title company
Yes.
that,
Always go with
that has
local.
experience with investment properties.
Right.
Exactly.
Because
Especially
like you
here.
said, use a $500,000 file you get for the typical, it's not going to have the same things. But you get into the nitty gritty investment properties here in Memphis, ones that have been off market, ones that have just
They
been.
are dirty.
Yes.
People will try anything. I had a closing one time where the guy mailed in a check for he was buying the property for $40,000. He mailed in a cashier's check for $80,000. So I email him and I'm like, okay, so what is this for? You need to send a wire. And he said, oh, it's okay. I just took out some money from some investments and I'm sending you everything. You can send me the difference. I'm like, I don't know about this. So I started Googling the bank. I Googled the routing number, the whole cashier's check. It looks so legit. And the whole cashier's check was fake. So when I emailed him back and presented that information to him and the screenshots and everything was fake, silence, never heard back from him. But she worked the whole file. She was ready. We were ready to close it.
And then you couldn't close it.
Nope.
Going back to, you talked about insurance purpose, not title insurance, but homeowners insurance.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, some of our borrowers, they wonder why do I have to pay all 6-month premium up front? And we have to have that conversation with them that, what if you decide to just drop it after 1 month and then the property burns down? So that's the thing. But you were talking about that being just making sure they get insurance before the closing of it.
Right. Because, especially if you have a lender, they're going to require it. But there's so many, especially the wholesaler, investor buyers, they tend to be the worst ones at getting the insurance. It's get the insurance.
You have to get it.
We're at the closing table. I'm we're all good. We're just waiting on insurance. So.
I decided not to schedule until I have insurance because it always comes so late that I have to redo all the paperwork anyway. So I don't feel like working double. So until I have insurance, I got the file ready to close. You're supposed to close, let's say Friday. But lender needs insurance. It's part of their loan terms and it's a requirement. Until you send the insurance and the lender approves it, and send me the invoice if you already paid it. Because that's another thing. I don't know whether you paid it or not, just because you send me a deck page. So I usually just wait until I get the actual go ahead, insurance is approved, it has been paid, here is the pay receipt or collected at closing, and then that's when I schedule because the
and
delays
that
on
typically
it.
is the last thing. Hey, I get see the emails. we're just waiting on insurance.
Yeah.
Yep.
It almost
very
every
common.
single file. And I don't think it triggers it until I get the file, which I'm the last person to get the file. She's insane.
And that's what I know that you say it moves a lot quicker in hard money. There's not as many hands, but within hard money too, it's like you start the file, you close the file. That works the same way within hard money. Like I initiate it, get it to loan committee, then it goes into the closing. I mean, there's a chain of command.
Right.
And everyone, it's like know who you're speaking with at each.
Yeah.
Yes.
And you gave them loan terms. They signed the loan term sheet. It clearly says get insurance.
They don't read.
I don't think anybody reads that part. I think it's so far
They look at
down
the
in the
numbers and
long
that's it.
terms.
They're
It's
like,
like, yeah, I
those
can do
numbers work.
this. And
Did I get 100% funding for everything?
Yeah,
that's
cool.
what
Do I
they're
get
looking
a
at.
note from
Anything that's
every
going to come
hub.
out of my pocket.
Right, because that's typically what they're
that's
looking
all we're
at.
looking at. Yeah.
So tell me, what's one of the? I know we've talked about a lot of crazy stories, but what's one of the craziest kind of closings you've had?
The craziest one for me that it was hard for me to. I was so upset. I prepared. There were no agents involved in there was an agent that she was helping, but she was not quite involved. She had to involve herself later. Okay. But I had this buyer and seller. The seller was an older man he was kind of like a grumpy old man type thing. So I didn't talk to him much, just enough. I kind of used the agent that was coordinating this thing to address the seller.
I bet he loved your accent too.
I prepare everything. I set everybody on schedule. Buyer came in at 10. I usually try to have a big, when I have a grumpy seller, I try to have them with a gap of at least 3-4 hours between the seller closing and the buyer closing and the seller. So I get to make sure that the buyer sends money, I have money, walk out of the table with money if possible at all. So I don't have a angrier person in my office. So I schedule the buyer like 10 o'clock in the morning. I schedule the seller like 3 o'clock in the afternoon. 3 o'clock and by 3:30, 4, 5. And I email the agent and I'm like, the seller never showed up. And she's like, that's weird because he confirmed that he was going to be there. So I'm like, okay, well, I email him. She tried calling him, nothing. He passed away the day of closing.
Oh, no.
They found him. His nephew went to his house 2 days later because nobody could get a hold of him, and he had passed away in his home. So that's the reason why he didn't show up to closing.
Was that one of our deals? Because we had one.
No,
we had
it
one of
was a
those not
cash
long ago,
closing.
though.
It was a cash closing. But here is the part that bothered me with this closing. Okay, it was bad timing. The man died. But then the nephew kind of like went and found a lender, an agent. They listed the property. I'm like, why are you listing the property? We already got a buyer who already closed on the property. He didn't, he actually did his part. I got money, I got everything. But it became an air file at this point. So Melissa got the file back. She started working on the air stuff. And there were 2 sisters of this old man who passed away. The nephew took care of the funeral. The nephew took care of cleaning the house, getting everything out from his uncle out of the house. The nephew took care of everything. I mean, he had the intention to sell the property, but also he was trying to, I need to pay the guy that pick up the stuff. I need to pay the moving people. I need to pay the funeral home. I need to pay whatever. And he actually had a fee for all his coordination and the time he invested on getting this done for the rest of the family. And I mean, honestly, okay. The sister of the deceased person called me yelling why out of her money she had
she
to
was never going to get in the first place.
She had to pay for the funeral home.
Oh my.
Yeah.
I'm like, oh my God, woman. Like you did if I would have scheduled this thing the day before, you would have gotten nothing. But yet, your brother passed, and you're complaining that the money you're getting from your brother's house, you don't want to pay for his own funeral?
And the worst part,
it was horrible. She was yelling. She was so upset.
That's lower than Diddy making Biggie pay for his own funeral.
Well, and the worst part is they wouldn't listen to me to begin with, because when you already have a signed contract by a seller, if they pass, all you have to do is go to court and have a representative appointed by the court for anybody in the family, to be able to sign on his behalf, because he already had a contract in place.
He had agreed to sell the property.
We didn't have to go through all that mess, but they didn't want to continue with this. and they wanted to cause it. So then it ends up being an air file and a whole big mess where it could have just easy been go to court, appoint a representative, and we could have closed.
Yeah, but I was so upset. I was so legitimately upset because, and I'm thinking to myself, like, I don't know how to explain to this woman, your brother passed. You're making money that doesn't belong to you. You just literally get this money on your lap and you cannot pay for your own brother's funeral. The nephew say, you know what, I'll just pay from my part. Because I think the nephew's mom had passed away, so he had a percentage in there. And he's like, just take it out of, this is why we don't deal with, this is why I took over, we don't deal with them.
Which it brings up, I think you said that one agent was kind of helping. What do you see on this of like the value of a good agent with dealing with investment properties?
Oh God, huge.
Like we have a few lenders that will get a contract and they send it to us, just two random people that they're working with, and there's no agent involved. And these lenders will drive me insane. I need you to get this. I need you to sit this sign. I'm not an agent.
Right.
I work after you have the contract and all this stuff signed.
And not only that, the buyer will tell you, "Well, that's not what the lender told me. So can you tell the lender that that's not the interest rate?" I'm like, "No, sir, I didn't negotiate this for you. You need to talk to your own lender." Just to give you an example from this afternoon, I had a closing schedule. Contract said all cash. I sit at the table. And the buyer goes, "So where is the rehab money?" I'm like, "What rehab money?" And he's like, "Yeah, I'm supposed to get $70,000 to rehab this property." I'm like, "Okay, so is the seller agreeing to finance $70,000? Because the contract says cash at closing. I don't see anything about a loan." And he's like, "Well, no, I had a lender. He had approved me before, a private lender. But then he said that he was not going to do the loan for me." And I'm like, "Okay, so where are you expecting to get that?" First of all, your contract says cash. Second of all, no one told us you're getting a loan. Third, never told us to get denied. And now you are just wondering which lender is going to give you this money, but yet you haven't done your work for it. And he's like, I'm like, "Do you have this amount of money?" He's like, "No, I don't." I'm like, "So what are you doing here?" I literally asked him.
So what I'm hearing is honesty is always the best policy.
Right. I'm like, "So what are we doing? You're not closing. I mean, find a lender. Let us know who the lender is. Well, do you have a lender?" I'm like, "Sir, I don't have a lender. Like, I can give you several different numbers." I gave him a couple of names and no. He's like, "Oh, since we're here, let me grab the phone and we can call them all so you can talk for me." I'm like, no. I'm going to give you the information. You call them all. You see what their guidelines are. You see if you get approved. You see which one benefits you the most. But I can do that for you. And he's like, okay. Well, I guess we'll do that and then close later. I'm like, yeah, I guess we will. Like, we have no choice.
But yeah, I don't have $70,000 offhand to give you.
I know. It's like, where's my $70,000 to fix the property? I'm like, I don't know.
No, it's just you get some of these newer investors and they just don't really know how everything works. So it's just education. It's just teaching them this is the step. These are the steps you need to take. This is how to be successful in doing these investment properties.
And I love getting new investors and helping to train them and helping them to do contracts right, assignments right, all of that information. Like, I like them to come to me first and just train them properly.
Yeah.
Right.
He said when you get this contract, right? So you get a contract, the X is buying from Z, and then Z is selling to
You get the daisy chain of
So
wholesalers.
I'm like, okay, so this is a double closing. Oh, no, this is an assignment. I'm like, no, it's not.
Not the way you did
No,
it.
it's not. This is how I always do it. I'm like, yeah, it doesn't mean it's right. So we have to keep trying to, okay, we're going to keep these papers because you already did them and they look pretty, but can you do this one for me? Just humor me. So we send them an actual assignment. It's like, please.
Well, I appreciate having y'all in. Anything you would like to say about your firm?
Well, Bradsher, Alpert, Stuart, we are relatively new, but our whole crew is old. We've all been
Very
around.
experienced.
Yeah, very experienced.
The office is new, but everybody that works in there has a
seen a
lot
thing
of
or two.
experience.
A lot,
Yes,
a lot.
It's the same team that we have been together for years. So basically, we just rolled into a better, more delightful environment to say it that way, and we all work
much better.
much
together.
better. Yes.
Yeah, we've got
Yes.
great attorneys. We've
It
got
feels
a
like
great
more
staff.
like a family now, and it does make
And that makes a difference. Even
It's
with the
huge.
bar, like with people coming in, your clients, it makes a difference.
It does.
everybody can see it. Everybody comes in the office and they're like, "Oh, we love the office. We love the vibe. It feels pretty good."
Awesome. Well, I thank
Yeah.
y'all for coming in, and
Of
thank
course.
y'all for tuning in.